Hello, welcome to Human Geography. We're going to talk about one of the main three pillars in human geography, race and ethnicity. And then we're going to talk about how those fit into language and religion briefly. It's in terms of the three pillars that I refer to frequently in this class. Race and ethnicity is the core one. So race, a classification system sometimes understood based on genetical significance. We do have some mixed race. The concept of racism, basically discriminating by race, ethnicity, ethnic group, a group of people that essentially are sharing a common ancestry or cultural tradition, strong feeling of group identity. Membership in an ethnic group is voluntary. Here we see a sample of this in China, where much of it is dominated by some core races and ethnicities, but some of it deviates a little bit from rural settings. Okay, so then we have immigrant and indigenous groups. So immigrants you can think of as far as moving into an area. There's also emigration, not to confuse it with moving out with the E, immigration with the E. And then indigenous groups tend to be traditional, local groups. We have acculturation, adoption of enough of the ways of a host society to be able to function economically and socially. We have assimilation, where basically a group influences a infiltration group, if you will. Transculturalism is basically culturals kind of transcending through different cultures, moving through different ethnicities and practices, if you will. We're going to get into regions. So ethnic homelands, ethnic islands, urban ethnic neighborhoods, ghettos. So we see concentrations of rural ethnic islands in the United States. We see quite a bit of them. Notice this doesn't necessarily span individual states in the United States, and its interaction overlap with Canada. Ethnic islands occupy a small area and serve as a home to several 100,000 people at most. Notice the size of that helps the definition. Relative distinctiveness remaining following assimilation of an ethnic homeland is an ethnic substrate. For instance, Tuscany in Italy having some of its uniqueness to Etruscans. German presence in American heartland, the character of the Midwest is a German substrate. We have ethnic neighborhoods. Could have them around stores, services, institutions. Here's an example of a substrate of Orthodox Jews. Ghetto, formation of a city, traditional area of a city within an ethnic group lives. So we do see that some of that in major cities. Here's Venetian ghetto. Venetian's Jewish population. Neighborhoods created by ethnic migrants tend to be transitory, so moving. We have ethnoburbs, so suburbs filled out by certain ethnicities. A lot of this tends to be some family living together, but there tends to be some identification with the ethnicities. Asian population by state, so we see this predominantly existing in California. Notice a lot of the states on the border are more Asian. Hispanic population by state, Southwest. At one point, much of that was occupied by Mexico, a part of Mexico. That explains some of that. The United States is home to foreign-born people, 40 million as of 2010. Immigration and illegal immigration has been a very hot topic in the United States. There's a breakdown by highest ethnic concentrations for different cities. Foreign-born by different cities in immigrants, where they go to. We have mobility. Talked about this a little bit last chapter with languages, migration and ethnicity. Humans descended from Africa about 60,000 years ago. That tends to be one definition. It kind of explains where ethnicity and languages all came from, why they kind of branched out, like in case of languages from two two main languages, Indo-European and Sino-Tibetan, we talked about last class. Okay, and we have chain migration, migrating along routes, channelization, following a specific region becomes linked to another destination. Examples of that, you could have somebody that kind of knows somebody and tells you, for instance, you're going to come to America, move to Boston or move to Denver. We know people there, and there's some people from Lebanon or whatever country they're already. Involuntary migration, unfortunately that happens. Internally displaced persons, refugees, usually of a natural disaster. Syrian conflict caused a lot of refugees to move to different areas, especially Europe. Very tragic. Cultural simplification, when an ethnic group loses certain aspects of their traditional culture, it kind of loses some of their identity. Cultural isolation, so split off based on different types of cultural aspects. Then we have globalization, which is kind of spreading influence throughout the world. Fortunately, we've had situations of genocide, systematic killing of racial, ethnic, religious, or linguistic groups. Some of this is thought to occur in Africa. Definitely happened under Milosevic in the 90s with the ethnic cleansing of the Serbs. Rwandan genocide. I don't know if anybody's ever seen Hotel Rwanda. It talks about that a little bit. Exposure to U.S.-based cultures. Minority identities facing globalization. Then we have nature and culture. Cultural pre-adaptation, so adaptive trait and skills based on a migration of a group. So certain types of groups tend to know certain types of ways to adapt based on their surroundings and their environment. We talked about that last chapter about ecofeminism too, the theory that females are more in tune with the environment. There's some theories on that. And be conscious and aware that some of these are supported by research and evidence, and some of them are somewhat theoretical. Environmental racism. I'm not going to go into that too much. Kind of falls into ecofeminism. Some truth to it, but kind of got to look at the facts of how it's supported. Ethnic flags, visible marker of ethnicity on a landscape. So using the land, surveying the land, urban ethnic landscapes. So basically certain things that can be recognized by the trained eye, for instance, mural, identification of certain types of foods, different kind of landscapes that can be fought, and then for instance Chinatown in New York City. See all the bright colors in the market and so forth. Hope you enjoyed this chapter. It's really interesting. One of the really neat things about human geography is you can really see how things fit together nicely and how they influence things in terms of the world. We really get to study things not so much regionally by going from North America to Middle America to South America to Europe to Asia, parts of Asia to so forth. We get to look at like themes, like for instance languages, race and ethnicity, population. So that's a fun thing about this class. Hope you're enjoying it.